Hello, I'm James Vasey. I'm Associate Assistant Head here at Bingley Grammar School. This is probably the first person you've actually seen at Bingley. Now you've been offered your place, so hello and welcome. We're looking forward to seeing everybody in September. What we're going to do in this video is just very quickly explain what we need you to do to supply us the information we need to get your child's details ready and up to date, and some of the information to keep your child safe with medical information, safeguarding information, and ensure that they're ready to start in September. So what we'll be doing is we'll be completing a data collection form. That's available at bingleygrammar.org/data collection. That link is available live now. You can go do it now if you want, but please stay and watch this video just to make sure you know what we're asking for. Or if you as you get through the form, you can pop back to this video and just check, why is he asking for that question? What information does Mr. Vasey actually need? Email in a photograph of your child with their name and date of birth, just so we know who they are, or you can do that through the data collection form. You can upload that form there. Anything and everything this summer, any email communication that you want with us, please send to transition@bingleygrammar.org. That is exclusively for Year 6 parents. When in September you start school, that changes and it'll become school@bingleygrammar.org. But until September, we'd like you to use transition@bingleygrammar.org. That will ensure that you get that dedicated response from either myself or my team of our admission officers, or the special needs coordinators, or the heads of year, what will become your head of Year 7 and heads of year, just so we get that dedicated support rather than going into the school inbox, which we'll get there, but it might just take a few hours longer to get a response. So I'll now just change the picture that we're looking at on the screen and change it to this screen here. So when you go to bingleygrammar.org/data collection, or click on the link in the email that I've sent to you, you should see a form that looks like this. It will look slightly different in the background. This is how I've built the form in the background, and I can turn off form validation, so I don't have to answer every question to go through, and so I can explain how this all works for you. So it's going to take about 30 minutes to put all the answers in, all the questions in. If you don't want to do it all at once, or you need to stop and go get a strong coffee, please do so. So what we're going to do is we're going to type our email address in there first, so parent's email address. And when at any point during this, you can just press save, and it will send a link to your email, so you can come back to this when you're ready, if you have some more information, and put that in. So parent's email address in that first box. So the first questions we're going to ask are about your child's name. We need to know their legal name. That's their name on their birth certificate or passport, or if it's been subsequently changed on a deed poll or an adoption certificate. That's their proper name, their Sunday name, as my mum likes to call it. That's what will also go on their examination certificates, unless it's changed subsequently. Their preferred name for many students will be exactly the same. So mine will be James Vasey, so my preferred name is James Vasey. However, some children want to be called by a different name. So Jonathan might want to be called Johnny, Isabel might want to be Bella, or Mohammed. We have a lot of children whose first name is Mohammed, and they use their middle name as their name that they want to be referred to day. So put that in. You will need to put in the name in twice. It won't let you move on to the next page without having their legal name and preferred name. So in my case, James Vasey, I would put that in twice. I'd put it in legal name and in preferred. If you leave the preferred blank, it won't let you move on. So it's just copy that across. Please make sure any spellings are correct. We will check that against other documents, but if you have a preferred name that you want us to call your child and you can spell it incorrectly, until September, that's what we will be calling your child. And on the first day, we will say and pronounce it wrong if it does seem to be wrong. So just make sure that the spellings are all correct. So what we'll then need to know is their date of birth. That date of birth is restricted to the Year 6 age range, so the 1st of September to the 31st of August. For the age range of year 6, it won't let you put in an age range that's too high or too low. Then we need their sex, whether they're male or female. If their sex doesn't match their gender, please can you drop an email to transition@bingleygrammar.org, and we will deal with that sensitively separately. But legally, we do have to record the sex of the child separately to their gender, if that's different. Then their most recent primary school, so where they're currently at now, and then their home address. Some children obviously will live with mum part of the week, dad part of the week. At this moment in time, could you just put one address in there, and then we'll work through that as we go later on through this process. So page 3, what we're going to need here is a photograph of your child, probably about the size here that you're looking at me now. So about 1 inch by 1 inch. It doesn't have to be a fantastic photograph. If you send us a big photograph, we'll crop it down. So you can either upload it here, as you see there, pupil photograph, upload, and just drop it in there, and we'll crop it down for you. Or you can email it to transition@bingleygrammar.org. When you get to the end of the form, it will warn you that you haven't uploaded a photograph. So if you haven't uploaded one, just send it across to transition@bingleygrammar.org. Remember to include your child's name and date of birth, just so we can match your child. We've got a number of children who've got a very similar, or in some cases the same name. So if you just want to make sure we got that date of birth, just so we can match those up. We then ask for some other forms. We ask for either a birth certificate or passport. If you've got both, that's fantastic, upload both. It's not compulsory at this point, but we will ask for it at some point over the summer. So if you're unable to get hold of it now, or you haven't planned to do that, if you can get that to us, either take a clear photograph and upload it, or a scan of it, upload it on this screen here, or email to, again, transition@bingleygrammar.org, name, date of birth on the email, just so we can match up whose documents they are. If you've got a deed poll, where you've changed the child's name after birth, could you include the birth certificate and the deed poll, or if they've been adopted, and a copy of the document certificate would be useful for us, just so we've got copies of all the documents. If you have any court orders, which for where the child lives, whether a parent is not allowed contact, it's really important. It's really important safeguarding that. Obviously, in primary school, they will know all these things. They can't in some cases tell us those things. You can. So if there's a court order against mum, against dad, child lives with grandma, and there's court orders, what's called special guardianship orders in place, please upload those in this section, or a copy to transition@bingleygrammar, or if necessary, stick it in an envelope, mark it for my attention, James Vasey, Bingley Grammar School, Keighley Road, BD16 2RS, and post that in to us. The more we know at the beginning, the safer we can keep your child, so that we don't keep the fact that dad doesn't live with you. Don't keep it a secret. Please tell us that dad there's a court order against dad or against mum, or siblings. Please tell us that as soon as you can. That way we can ensure that from day 1 in September, we're following the court orders, we're keeping your child safe as we can. So we'll go to the next page. If your child has their own mobile phone number or own email address, put it there. That's not your mobile phone number, it's not your email address. It's not compulsory, but if you do have it, it just makes it easy for us to sometimes find mobile phones, get in contact with children, especially when they leave. If we need to get in contact with them afterwards, sometimes it's easy for us to get in contact that way, especially when they get to the end of school, collecting examination certificates and things like that. So we put it in there, and we will keep that up to date throughout their time at Bingley Grammar. Obviously, in an emergency, your first contact will be the emergency contact. We're not going to ring them. It'll always ring you first, in the order that you've specified later on in this form. So siblings, in order for us to match up parents and make sure we don't have any duplicate contacts, if your child currently or have previously had brothers and sisters here at the school, you just put their names in, we can match up most then of the record of mum and dad and grandma and aunties, put those in together. It just stops us creating 2 Mr. Smiths. when it's actually the same person. Again, there's a box there, is your child a twin? Now it says, is somebody a twin? So if I just go back and populate this section here with the name with my name, it will now ask me, if I just go down here, so is James a twin? So a lot of the questions now will then be a bit more personalized. So is James a twin? And no, I'm not. I feel sorry for them if they were, sorry. But if they, but if you do have twins coming, fill this form in once, press that button. It will just alert us to the fact that we need to duplicate this all for you, because we don't want to have to go through you putting all your emergency contacts in, all the details we ask for, doing that twice. Do it once, it's bad enough and difficult enough. Just put that and we'll send you a copy of this data with the other child's name, and we'll match that all up for you. So that's what we'll do. So page 6, we're whizzing through there. We're a third of the way through. We're asking now for medical information. If you know the NHS number of your child, that's really useful. We've been using it all the way through COVID to make sure we've matched up medical information, the COVID lateral flow tests that we've been sending back to the DFE. Your GP surgery and telephone number, that's not your doctor. So if it's Bingley Medical Practice and not Dr. Smith. And then the telephone number. The reason why we ask for the telephone number is because a lot of surgeries change their name, and it happens quite often, but they don't change their telephone number as often. So we can match up the telephone number. So if a surgery has changed its name, we go, who's this new medical centre, ABC Medical? If we check the telephone number, we go, that used to be called this name, and we can just check it and update the records accordingly, because sometimes we don't get told that surgeries have changed their name. Any medical conditions your child has, we need to know about in order to help keep your child safe. This will be shared only with our medical team. Any medical information, send it in the first instance to transition@bingleygrammar.org. We'll make sure that it then goes into the correct medical email address at Bingley, so that somebody will contact you. So if your child needs a care plan, we'll be in contact with you before September to get that care plan put into place. If you've already got a care plan, there's a section there to upload. So if you've got an asthma care plan, please upload it. Again, if you need to come back and upload that later, don't forget to press save, and you can come back to this and then upload those documents at a later date. Any medical notes you might have about hearing, sight, allergies. Again, if they wear glasses, we don't need to know that. But if they have a particular type of lens, something specialist about the fact that they wear glasses, that it's other than a normal long sight, short sight, we don't need to know that. But anything specialist about that, you might want to let us know about. We'll then ask you a question about whether your child has any prescription medication that needs to be brought into school. Yes or no. And if you press yes, we then start to ask the questions down here about what condition, what medication, what type of medication. So that they've got asthma, that it's an inhaler, that it's a salbutamol inhaler, how many doses of inhaler they need to take, when do they need to take it, are there any special storage instructions, do we need to keep it in a fridge, can we keep it in a drawer, can your child take that medicine themselves, or does it need to have a member of our first aid staff look after it? What to do in an emergency. So if that medical condition is now an emergency, do we contact you and that it can be dealt with via our first aid team or with parents, or is it call an ambulance? Again, what we need to do. Also, what we need to do if the pupil refuses to take their medicine. What do you want us to do? Do you want us to leave it, or do you want that it's not a life-threatening medication that they must take and that you'll deal with that at home, or do we need to get you to come in and speak to you, or whether we need some other action? So just put those actions in there if possible, please. If you have more than one medicine, click add medicine, and you can add medicine 2, medicine 3, medicine 4, as many as you need to make us aware of. So I'll put that prescription medicine that needs to be brought into school. Some medication is only needed at home. The reason why we ask for medication that you only bring at home is in case there's a medical emergency in school, it's really helpful for us to be able to tell the ambulance service when they arrive what medication the child's on. And so if there's any medication that they're taking at home, that they don't bring in, if you could tell us on that section, just so that we can tell the ambulance service, oh, they're on this particular type of medicine in the morning, this dosage, what they're taking, and how they're taking it, just so that when they're going to the hospital, all that information can be passed over, and we're not missing some vital piece of medicine that would affect how your child is potentially treated. Because obviously, if there's some medicine that the ambulance service then wouldn't give another type of medicine for, or the doctors at A&E wouldn't give that medicine for. Again, it's all that in an emergency, what information can we quickly get to the ambulance service and to A&E that we don't forget about and don't miss. Again, it's about keeping your child safe. So the next section, how are they going to get to and from school? So it's a drop-down list. Are they walking, cycling, school bus? That's the yellow bus. Or a public bus. Now, at the moment, you might not know whether you're going to get the dedicated school bus. In year 7, if you have a dedicated Bingley Grammar School bus that comes past you, then you will be able to apply for that, and year 7 get priority over that. It does mean that year 11 don't get priority. So year 7 get priority, then year 8, and year 9. So by the time you get to year 11, you might be pushed off the yellow bus in preference of a year 7 child later. That's obviously later on. What are they going to eat at lunchtime? Are they going to have a school dinner or a packed lunch? So it's just one or the other. And any dietary conditions that your child might have. So if all their food must be halal, vegetarian, vegan, if you have any dietary allergies that you need to make us aware of, please put that in there. If you've missed anything that you've missed off, email transition@Bingley Grammar, and we'll make sure that gets put on the record. We're not allowed to assume. So if you tell us that you have a particular religion, it doesn't automatically mean that we will put on that you have a particular dietary requirement. So if you do have a dietary requirement, please put that there. Otherwise, we won't know about it. And obviously, with any allergens, please make us aware in that section as well, please. So we now need to find out about life at home. What we ask first of all is their first language. The first language is the language that they spoke when they were first learning to speak. So when they were a baby, when they were a toddler, when they're first learning, was that English or was it another language? If it was another language, just write that in there. And the language then next to that is the language that's now spoken at home. It may be the same, but it may be different. And those are 2 questions. So we've got the first language that they learned when they were a baby, and then the language now spoken at home. Again, for most people, that'll be English and English, but for a large number of people, that won't be. So please put that in there, and we use those figures. One of those figures, one of those answers does affect our school funding. So please be as accurate as you can. Thank you. The next questions are optional. We do usually get an uptake of about 90% of people answering these questions, though. So the country of birth, their nationality, and if they have a dual national. We have on the dual nationality section and the nationality section, we do have sometimes a bit of confusion on that. That's the passport they are eligible for and not their ethnicity or ethnic background. So please make sure that you're answering the question about the passport that they have or that they would be entitled to have if they had a passport, rather than their ethnic background. Their ethnicity is the next question. Most students at Bingley Grammar School would describe themselves as either white British or Pakistani or Bangladeshi. In Bradford, because we use what's known as the short list of DFE codes, the Department for Education, we also have the option for students to refer to themselves as Mirpuri Pakistani. So if you're from Kashmir, then you can describe yourself like that as well. Obviously, any ethnicity that you are is perfectly valid, and just add that into that box there. That's why it's not a limited box. You can write in what your ethnicity, and we will accept that. Religion, again, but if you want to decline to answer that question, you can, but all those questions where you don't answer will be marked as refuse to answer. And so we won't do any analysis or any recording based on that. It will just be marked as refuse to answer. Same with religion. We We have a limited list of religions that we can that we use on the DFE list. You can refuse to answer. You can say you have no religion, or you can use any of the religions on that drop-down list. Again, if you've got other, and we'll just ask that separately. But again, you can refuse to answer, or you can say no religion. It's not a problem to do either. So we'll click next. The school receives money based on the demographics of its pupils. One of those is what's called the pupil premium. And so we have to check and validate the information we get about children. So we ask some of these questions. So is it either parent in the armed forces? Again, yes or no, and that's going back up until about 2015. So if from 2015 onwards, you either mum or dad were in the armed forces, that's a yes or no question there. Step parents are included in that if the step parent lives with the child. Has the child been in care or currently in care? Or was the child adopted, your child adopted, or there was a special guardianship order in place, which means that they were in care and that they're now living with somebody with a court order in place. Or the final question, is your child or has your child been eligible for free school meals in the last 6 years? And those are just yes, no's to those. If you don't want to answer those questions, you can leave those as no. This section here is emergency contact information and parental responsibility. What we're asking you to do, first of all, is read this section. It's quite a long section, and it explains about who has parental responsibility. We ask for 3 emergency contacts. The form will allow you just to submit 1. If you only submit 1, we will contact you and ask for a second and potentially a third where possible. But the form, as you're going through, will allow you just to put 1. But be aware that we will be in contact with you if you only do put 1. Some families are no longer in contact with the mother or father of the child. The school is required to know by the name and contact details of all parents to comply with our child protection procedures and the law. It is a legal requirement. You can supply those details through the form, or you can email transition@binghamgrammar.org, or by post even if you only know the most basic details. So the form on the next page where it asks for parent details, none of the fields are compulsory. So just put as much information as you can. I don't need you to know the full address of dad or of mum if you say, oh, dad lives somewhere in Manchester and has nothing to do with the child. Just put Manchester, that's fine. Just put as much detail as you know. It just means that then we know that if dad ever then rocks up at reception, that we're ready and waiting, and we have all this information in our armoury about mum or dad that's an absent parent, rather than being on the back foot. It's better for us to be aware of any situations. If a court order exists, please give us a copy of that court order. Again, there's the upload page a couple of pages back. An absent parent is still legally a parent, and we do need to know about them. So please ensure that you tell us about them. If there is a reason, and sometimes parents are deceased, if you're not including them in there, please just drop an email to transition@binghamgrammar.org, and obviously we won't contact you about that. So who has parental responsibility? All birth mothers have parental responsibility. All fathers who were married to the child when the child was born, or all fathers who are not married to the mother but are registered on the birth certificate. So if dad is named on the birth certificate, he has parental responsibility, unless there is a court order removing that parental responsibility from that child. So if the child, if they're on the birth certificate, they have parental responsibility, even if they've had no involvement with that child since they were born. So we do need to know about them and be aware of them. And again, if there are court orders, keep us informed we can make sure that all our procedures are in place for your children. Civil partners and partners of mothers re-registered as the child's legal parent on the birth certificate. So again, if it's on the birth certificate, they have parental responsibility, even if that relationship is subsequently broken down. Unless they've been taken off by a court order, they are still a parent. Fathers who have a court-witnessed parental responsibility agreement or a court-issued parental responsibility order. Again, it's quite a rare document, but they do exist, and we do have some in school. So if you do have that document, send that. You can send that in to us either through the upload or transition@bingleygrammar.org. If you've got a special guardianship order, so the child's been in care, come out of care, and a grandparent or somebody or an aunt or an uncle is looking after that child, and there's a court order, then in that case, that parent will have parental responsibility. Foster parents are viewed as having that for most cases, so tell us that. And also adoptive parents, you will have that through your adoption certificate that you are recognised as a parent with parental responsibility. Step parents don't have legal parental responsibility in the formal Children Act sense. They do in the Education Act sense. It's quite complicated. So under the Children's Act, a step parent isn't a legal parent, but under the Education Act, you are. So a step parent living in the house of a child still has responsibilities to that child, is still responsible for ensuring that they get to school on time. And if you take them out of school to go on a holiday, then you can be fined. But there are other things under the Children's Act that you cannot do as a step parent. So just be aware that we do need to know about step parents, and they can be the first contact, they can be the second contact. That's not a problem. So we do need to know about them if they're living with you. We do need to be aware of step parents. And so it's really important that we do know about them, but they don't have parental responsibility in the way that we regard it in the first instance. The section then at the bottom is, have you read this? And you're aware of what we're asking for. The last section that we ask for is if there's anybody over the age of 18 that lives in the house that you're not putting as an emergency contact, there's a box at the bottom of the form just to ask in us. We ask, could you let us know who they are? So if grandparents live at the address and you're not having them as an emergency contact, could you just make us aware that they live at the house, or older siblings that over the age of 18, just so that we're aware, just for our safeguarding procedures. So when a child says, oh, this person who lives at that house is, there's an issue, just so we know who these people are. And also that they can come and collect your child if you can't come and get them. So if we've got a record of them, we'll let them go and we know that they live at the house. But if we don't know about them, and we don't know their address, we won't let them go home. So if you tell us about contacts, you give us an emergency contact 3, who's an auntie, and you give us a mobile phone number. If you don't give us their address, we won't let your child go home with them if they're ill or something like that. So we do need to know their address of everybody that's you want us to come and collect as part of your tour. So contact 1, so we're asking first name, surname, their relationship to me in this case. So Mr. James Fazy, what role I am, mother, father, stepmother. So in this case, I should be my own father. Do I have parental responsibility? Yes, I do. My date of birth, I'm not going to tell you that. My home address, where I live, home number, mobile number. Again, all these fields aren't compulsory. You can move on without filling these in for other contacts. So for contact 2, contact 3. So if you don't know where dad lives, you can just fill one in, and fill the details in. Now, if there is a court order, just email transition@bingleygrammar.org, let us know the details, and we'll amend it once it's in our system, and we'll get that all updated for you. But as much detail as you can. If they have a parent, we do ask for national insurance number and date of birth. The reason why we ask for national insurance number and date of birth is it's to help match against Department Work and Pensions records for children that go missing and for free school meal eligibility as well. We have been in the past been able to find absent parents where they've come and taken a child. We've been able to provide the police very quickly the national insurance number, which has allowed them very quickly to find the address of the parent. It's happened I think twice. It's a Bradford scheme that we operate. So put that in there. Again, if you don't want to provide that, absolutely fine. Don't provide it, leave it blank. Again, we ask the question because we don't know which families are going to be the families in 2, 3, 4 years' time where something will happen. So we ask the question of all families. Are you a former student? So if you're female and a former student, we may have a very basic record of you, name, start date, end date, just so that we can fill references in for you in the future. But we would obviously know you by previous name, so it just helps match up your records. We only maintain an absolute basic record after the age of 25, just to prove you were here. So if we ever get a reference 5 years down the line from for the police, they ask all the way back to childhood. Work at the airport, they ask all the way back to childhood. And so we keep those records for that purpose. We don't keep a record of your attendance. We don't keep records of what mark you scored in a test 10 years ago, but just the fact you were here and you were a student. So adding them for contact 1. Once you've done contact 1, click on add a contact, contact 2, and 3, please. 3 is really a minimum we want you to use. If you can't do 3, give 2. And if for some reason you can't give 2 contacts, give 1. But we will be in contact with you asking the details of if we can get somebody else, a neighbour, a relative, somebody that we can get in contact with. Any other adults living at home, put at that bottom section. So it says that at the bottom, ideally you should provide 3 contacts. That's because we've not provided 3 contacts, so it will just warn us. It says currently you have 1 contact, please consider adding another. So please add those details in 3 rather than 2, and especially rather than 1. We have consent for images is this next question. We will take photographs of your child for education purposes. We will have the photograph for the school record system. We're allowed to take those photographs and we don't give consent for those. We can take photographs of your child taking part in an educational activity if we're going to take those photos to assess the performance of your child. So for example, in a PE lesson, we can take a photograph or film them taking part in some football activity or some netball activity to show technique and use it as an educational. So whilst ever we're using that as educational, we can take those photographs and use those. What we then have are whether or not we can put photographs on the walls, on the website, in prospectuses, to make it as simple as possible. Anything that isn't immediate educational consent, we ask for your consent, and it's a yes, no. I know some schools ask, can we put them on the wall? Can we put them on the classroom? Can we put them on the website? It's a simple yes, no to avoid confusion and avoiding making mistakes. So we will take photographs for educational purposes, but if you put no and leave it as no, they won't go on the wall, they won't go on Twitter, they won't go on the website, they won't go on the prospectus. If you put yes, we may use them for that. We don't break that down any further to avoid mistakes being made. This is the homeschool agreement. It explains what parents will do, it explains what children will do, and it explains what the school will do. So you just need to change those to yes, I agree, yes, your child agrees, and then obviously we agree that we will do our bit as well. So click on to next on this. This next section is permission for trips and visits. These are trips and visits during the school day or immediately after if they're a sporting activity that don't have a cost to you. Any school trip that is a proper, or we're off to Flamber or off to Malham, that's we get a coach and there's a cost involved, you will get a consent form, you will have to fill that in separately. But if we're going out to Crossflats railway station to do a geography study, or going to or to a field, or to Crossflats primary school for an activity, then if we fill this consent form in once, we don't have to fill that in each and every time that there's an activity or sporting activity. So we're just ticking that box that you agree there at the bottom. It's not consent to go off-site at break and lunchtime. We don't do that. Schools got rid of that a long time ago. So it's only a supervised activity. So it's in a supervised lesson or a sporting activity, so football, netball, things like that. Obviously, your children will tell you whether they're on the football and netball teams, things like that. These 2 sections now are about emergency medicine. We can't give medicine to children as a standing rule. So if your child asks for paracetamol, or ibuprofen, we can't give that to them. We don't have that. We are allowed to have two types of emergency medicine. That's emergency salbutamol, which is a type of an asthma inhaler, and an EpiPen for serious allergic reactions. So the first question is about asthma. If you have been diagnosed with asthma, it populates some extra questions and just follow those through. If you haven't been diagnosed with asthma, we can just move on to that next question and say, if we believe that your child is having an asthma attack, and you may say, well, my child's never had an asthma, never, absolutely fine. But in the sudden instance, in year 10, when your child is struggling to breathe and we think it's asthma, can we provide them with an asthma inhaler in an emergency? If your child does have asthma, we ask the question, do they have they been prescribed an inhaler? Do they have it up to date, and will they bring it into school? And again, if they don't have it, or their inhaler is not available, or it's run out, again, the same question, can they use the Bingley Gamma inhaler? So probably, I think about 98, 99% of parents say yes to the question of, can we use it in an emergency? Obviously, we're not going to give salbutamol inhaler to every child at every opportunity. It's going to be an emergency. And so we'll go to the next question. The next question then is about anaphylaxis. If your child is being diagnosed with anaphylaxis, answer those questions at the top, so the yes, no, and it will ask you some more questions about, do you have an EpiPen? Do you have spare EpiPens? Will you be bringing those EpiPens into school? Are we going to store them in the first aid department, or is your child confident enough, and are you confident enough for your child to keep it on their person? For parents whose children do not have a diagnosis of anaphylaxis, anaphylaxis is a serious, life-threatening allergic reaction that your child may never have suffered from. However, your child's currently in year 6. In year 7, year 8, year 9, all the way through, at some point, your child may develop an allergic reaction to something. An early dose of epinephrine from an EpiPen may save their life. So the question we're asking there for parents who whose children haven't been diagnosed is, in the event of displaying symptoms of anaphylaxis, in the professional judgment of a qualified first aider, I consent for your child to receive epinephrine or adrenaline from an EpiPen held in school for such emergencies. It's only going to be done by our trained first aid. Every single member of staff has had EpiPen training. Every member of our first aid team has had additional training. We're not going to give this medicine to them unless we're also on the phone to the ambulance service. It's not a medicine that we're just going to give out randomly. I have phone calls every summer when I ask, why have you said no to this question? Is there a medical reason? Because there may be a medical reason to say no that we need to be aware of. Again, about 98% of parents say yes to that question. Again, and for 100% of those parents, it will probably never be a problem. But it's just to be aware of. Things can happen, and the sooner we can get an EpiPen into their leg, the greater chance we have of that child coming out the other end well. Obviously, we're only going to do that with a qualified first aider on the phone to the ambulance service at the same time. The reason why we're asking for that consent now is for asthma or anaphylaxis. If we're having to make this decision, your child is very, very poorly. We don't have time at that moment in time to ring you and get your consent. So we're asking for that consent now, so that when we're on the phone to the ambulance service, getting your child an ambulance to school, that we can take those actions immediately. And obviously another member of staff will be ringing you to make you aware, but we don't have that time. This is a life-threatening emergency. We need to ask that question now, so we've got the answer. Again, if you say no, that answer is no, unless the ambulance service instruct us to use that medicine, which is rare. They would go by parental consent in most cases. So ICT acceptable use. And so we're asking there that you understand how the internet and computers can be used in school, what you will and what you won't use it for. Again, the provision is extensive. we will keep your child safe, that access is monitored, it is logged, and it's to make sure that you explain to your child that access is logged and is noticed, and that we will take action, and we will be informing, and we will get in contact with parents and say, we've got a bit of concern about how they're using the internet in school, what they're trying to do, and just be aware of that. That it's responsible use of the internet. Obviously, a lot of these social media functions have minimum ages of 13, so things like Facebook, things like TikTok I think is older than that. So just be aware that children should not be using those and should not be using them in school. Year 7s we'll explain later on, but year 7s don't use their mobile phone in school, not at break, not at lunch either. So if they're bringing a phone, it goes in their bag at 8:20 when they walk onto the premises, and they don't get their phone out of their bag until 2:50. If they bring a phone into school at all. So there's then a bit of a checklist, just to confirm whether or not you've uploaded your photograph. If you haven't, you can either go back onto page 3, upload the photograph, or you can email transition@binghamgrammar.org. If you're not ready yet to submit it back to us, press save, and it will save a copy back to your email that you can then click on the link in the email and restart and keep going. If you've submitted all your documents, got your photographs, got your 3 contacts, given all the consents that you need to give, once you're absolutely ready, press submit, and that will come through to us, and we'll start populating your child's record, ready to start at Bingley Grammar School in September. There will be a couple more emails coming out. So for things like uniform vouchers, that will come out in about a week's time, possibly a bit quicker. Things about school buses. Now, we don't organise the school buses, and we don't have much involvement in them, but we will send out all the information to you, so you can start to make arrangements with the West Yorkshire Metro to get the passes and everything that you need sorting out there. So you'll get an email from me roughly once a week until summer holidays with a new bit of information. Obviously, if you can act on it that week, that'd be fantastic. So I'm keeping everybody up to speed and on track with this process. So I've got most parents in the same place. So I know that when I send out the next email, I've not got parents with 3, 4, 5 tasks still to do. So you'll be getting a regular email from me. At least you've met me now. Hello, welcome. And so anything that you need any questions, send them into transition@binghamgrammar.org. Send everything, transition, photographs if you want. If you need to scan things later, so birth certificates, passports, court order documents, send them there. Or if you want, post them in for my attention. James Fazy, Bingley Grammar School, BD16 2RS, and it'll come straight through to us. So it only leaves me to welcome you to Bingley Grammar School. I hope you enjoy it. There will be other videos, there will be other events in school toward this summer term where you'll meet with all the other members of the senior team. But for now, thank you very much, and I'll leave you to your data collection form. Thank you.